What is strength? Is it force production against an external object? Is it the ability to deadlift, double, triple, or quadruple your body weight? Is it the ability to leap over buildings in a single bound? Or is it something more, something deeper, but no less tangible? In this video, I'm going to share my journey to discovering and defining strength. I walked into Savage Barbell Club in April of 2018, a mess, physically, mentally, emotionally, and socially. I had PTSD, depression, and anxiety. I was terrified to leave my house. I had sensory processing disorder, fibromyalgia, and chronic fatigue syndrome. I had just been told that I wouldn't need to have back surgery for the herniated discs in my thoracic spine that were compressing my spinal cord if I continued to make progress strengthening my back muscles and managing my symptoms in other ways. The truth is, I was desperately grasping for hope that my life could somehow be better. Because, except for the back issues, this had been my life since the end of 2014. And I felt like I was slipping into a darkness that I couldn't escape. Of course, I didn't tell myself all of this as I walked into a powerlifting gym for my interview with Jaron Carriage, the coach and owner of Savage Barbell Club. Instead, I told myself that this was the necessary step to avoiding surgery and gaining strength. I didn't admit that I wanted to be strong so I could feel safe, secure, and untouchable. I didn't admit that I wanted to be strong to feel less like a target, less vulnerable, and more in control. Strength. It's an interesting word, isn't it? To some, it merely suggests a measurable production of force against an external object, like a barbell. To others, it is a fortitude, a hardness against the things that life throws their way. To some, it is the jaw set in determination that it will not be moved. And to others, it's merely the will to get out of bed in the morning. To some, it is trauma overcome and hardship prevailed against. To others, an invisible, immeasurable quality of being and doing. But what if strength is all of that and more? In the gym, I discovered that strength was impacted as much by my thoughts and emotions as the ability of my muscles and my form to make a lift. My capacity fluctuated based on my attitude and the stories I was telling myself, not just about the lift, but about me. When I was beating myself up for not having the energy to do all the things I wanted to do, or for being in pain from the fibromyalgia. When I was struggling with anxiety attacks, nightmares, and flashbacks, and told myself that this was some inherent weakness in me that made me susceptible to these things. Those stories, beliefs, and attitudes significantly impacted my physical output of strength. At first, I didn't see it, but over time, I began to recognize that strength expression was a fluid concept, that it was dependent on far more than my commitment to consistently training at a high level. I discovered that my mental, emotional, spiritual, and social well-being played a crucial role in my performance in the gym, and that physical recovery was as vital as the training itself. I began to ask questions. I began to explore. What if I was kind to myself? What if I allowed myself to rest when I needed to? What would happen if I asked my coach to help modify my training on days when I was struggling with fibromyalgia or some of the more debilitating symptoms of PTSD? Could I still build strength physically while holding space for myself to heal and develop strength in these other areas? As I practiced asking for help and acknowledging my needs in the gym, I also began to practice other kinds of training outside the gym. I became very intentional about paying attention to the stories I was telling myself, the way I spoke to and about myself, the words I used in general. I dedicated time on purpose to developing and practicing tools to help me develop my mental health, discovering what grounding and calming techniques worked best for me in which situations, asking trusted friends to help me, and teaching them how to recognize that I needed help when I was unable to ask. I got vulnerable and taught a couple close friends the techniques I used that were most helpful for grounding and how to identify what I needed. I acknowledged that there were times I couldn't do this by myself, and I invited them to step in. I began building a network of support as I supported myself. I applied what I knew from Scripture to my spiritual training, learning to take every thought captive, to recognize what was simply circumstantial and what was a result of my own perception and expectations, and learning how not to be conformed to the beliefs and expectations of the world around me when God had something higher and better for me if I would just ask. I started to see that who I believed myself to be and who I believed God was were directly linked to my experience of and expression of strength. In all of this, I stayed consistent in the gym, trusting that if I just kept showing up and doing the work, it would somehow all come together. And you know what? The results were measurable. They were quantifiable. No, not all of them, but enough of them. I began having fewer flashbacks, fewer fibro flares. I was able to go into a grocery store and get groceries with less anxiety. I became better able to manage panic attacks when they came, and they came less often. I developed deeper relationships as I learned to ask for help and to be specific about how help might look. By the end of 2018, I was no longer on medication of any kind. I was using essential oils and a few supplements that I had found effective for me, and I was growing internally stronger and more confident. I hadn't expected that. In this process, I discovered that training was about far more than developing muscles for explosive demonstrations of strength. It was about developing as an individual. It was about awareness and intent, about how I responded to tension under a bar and in every area of life. It was about developing personal integrity to live a life aligned with my values, beliefs, and identity, as well as the structural and postural integrity to move weight well. Training was about developing and increasing capacity, having the flexibility and fluidity to move with the flow of life, rather than becoming rigid and resisting it. It was about developing the capacity to pivot to accommodate my needs, and understanding that doing so was neither weak nor shameful, but rather another amazing expression of strength. It was about growing ever more deeply rooted in my relationship with God and His love for me, and daily doing those things that increased my capacity to express force against external situations, circumstances, and weights without becoming bitter, harsh, and hard-hearted. Training was about learning to rest in the ongoing process of learning, developing, and becoming. This shift in my perception about training helped me embrace a broader, more expansive definition of strength, one that spoke to the depth and breadth of strength that we each have the capacity to develop in every area of our lives. It invited identity, relationship, and values into the equation, as well as mental and emotional resilience. Strength became the capacity to live a life of audacious courage, the capacity to pursue healing and freedom from the lies and labels of the past, the unveiled expression of who I am in every situation and circumstance I encounter, and the space I hold for myself to continue to grow and develop day by day, moment by moment. Strength became a joy-filled celebration as my physical ability to move heavy weights became an outward expression of my internal fortitude. As I continued to move towards wholeness and a new understanding that I am truly stronger when I'm at rest. This is what strength and training mean to me. So tell me, what do they mean to you?